thank you for joining us. First, for some breaking news this morning. Overnight, IDF forces struck a number of Syrian military and security targets in what Israel says places that are connected to the blast that injured 4 Israeli soldiers in the northern border of Israel yesterday. The targets, which included military headquarters, artillery batteries, and a training base, according to Israel, belonging to the Syrian military, enabled the attack of yesterday on the 4 Israeli soldiers. We are joined on the phone first by Haaretz senior defense correspondent Amir Oren. Amir, good morning to you.
Good morning to you.
And now, do we know, really, does anybody know who was behind that attempted attack on the northern border of Israel?
As late as last night, no one was in any position to confirm or deny whether it was the Syrian regime, Hezbollah, Al-Qaeda, or anybody else. Israel has quite strangely reacted against a target it wasn't really sure who was behind.
And so, and in that respect, and a very good point, then what's the point of an attack as such? Just to show power?
Well, the stated purpose is to claim that whoever holds sovereignty over the territory out of which the attack was perpetrated against the Israeli force bears responsibility and therefore will be held accountable. But this is very nice in theory, in political science classes, in the state of flux in Syria right now, where nobody is really sure who is in control of what sector along the border, and you can see 5 or 6 adjacent sectors where each is held by some other group. There is hardly any point in calling on Damascus to control whatever is happening outside of the capital itself.
At the capital itself. And really quickly, finally, there was one source reporting yesterday, I believe it was Al Arabiya, saying that the attack on the border on the Israeli soldiers was supposedly an attempt to kidnap an Israeli soldier. But is there any proof to that?
No, there is no proof to that, and there was no one on the other side of the border when the explosive device was set off. If there was some validity to this theory, one would have expected a few perpetrators to lurk in hiding and try to do something to the soldiers who disembarked from the vehicle. So no, perhaps there was some plan, but there is no proof that it was implemented.
No, rightfully so, putting that in order. Amir Oren, senior military correspondent of Haaretz, thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
Moving to the main story of the day, defying Ukrainian protests and Western sanctions, Russian President Vladimir Putin signed a treaty yesterday making Crimea part of Russia again, but said he did not plan to seize any other regions of the Ukraine. In a fiercely patriotic address to a joint session of parliament in the Kremlin, punctuated by standing ovations, cheers, and tears, Putin said Crimea's disputed referendum vote on Sunday, held under Russian military occupation, had shown the overwhelming amount of people that wanted to be united with Russia. To further follow this story, we're very glad to be joined in studio by Channel 2 Senior Foreign Affairs Editor Arad Nir. Arad, good morning to you.
Good morning,
and from Moscow, by I-24 News correspondent there, Ilan Goren. Ilan, good morning to you as well. First, though, let's take a look at the following report.
Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin.
Russia versus the world, now it's official. Despite the West imposing their first financial sanctions and suspending Russia's G8 membership, President Vladimir Putin stood firm in the Grand Kremlin Palace today and declared his full intention to make Crimea a part of the Russian Federation.
Crimea has always been and remains an inseparable part of Russia. This conviction, based on truth and fairness, has always been resolute and was passed from generation to generation. Both time and circumstances could not erase it.
Reaching deep into Russian and Soviet history to justify the annexing of the Black Sea Peninsula, Putin defended the legitimacy of Sunday's referendum, in which 97% of Crimeans chose to become part of Russia, and reprimanded Western allies for their harsh opposition.
We did not expect this response. We were cheated again and again. Decisions were made behind our back, but everything has its limits. And in the case of Ukraine, Our Western partners have crossed the lines. They acted primitively, irresponsibly, and unprofessionally.
Following US President Barack Obama's announcement Monday of sanctions against 11 Russian and Ukrainian officials, several countries joined the ban. Japan decided to suspend talks on investment pacts and relaxation of visa requirements as France announced a halt in its military cooperation with Russia. But the most extreme step thus far has been the suspension of Russia from the world's leading group of industrialized countries.
Where the G8 is concerned, that is a political form of dialogue between all the big countries together. We have decided to suspend the participation of Russia, meaning it is envisaged that all the other countries unite without Russia.
However, experts believe this is another symbolic gesture with little real impact on the Russian decision-makers. Meanwhile, the anger at Russia's aggressive approach increases, reflecting the deepest plunge in the country's relations with the West since the Cold War.
So we're joined by senior foreign affairs editor for Channel 2, Arad Nir, and from Moscow, Ilan Goran. But Arad, first to you. You know, before we touch on, reactions in Europe or in Russia to this, this is, a one man's power play, just looking at him on that stage in the Kremlin. And I'm wondering, we had a conversation before, when it comes to perception in the world, this is a huge victory for Putin, isn't it?
Well, no doubt. Putin orchestrated his mission accomplished ceremony, which the President 43, George W. Bush, can only envy. His mission was accomplished in a speed of a twit, in this era that we live in. But we must remember that Crimea is very important and very strategically significant for Russia and for Putin. It has no real significance to the West. It has no real strategic importance to the US of A. It has no strategic importance to NATO whatsoever. It is a symbol for Russia. And mind you, Putin has planned this. I said it, it all went in a speed of a twit, but he pre-planned it for a long time. Putin doesn't remember, and Putin doesn't forget, and he doesn't give up. And this is his revenge to the West, to the Kosovo affair from the last decade. And he was pre-planning it, and he executed it to the bit as was planned. And I wouldn't see it as a big defeat to Obama or a big defeat to the West. It is symbolizing, it is a big symbol, but it has not real significance.
But if we are talking about perceptions and worldwide perception, and Ilan Goran joining us from Moscow. First of all, Ilan, good morning to you, and I am wondering, now that, we've seen these pictures and we've seen the speech, which is, really a fascinating show of power. In Moscow itself, actually in Russia, though, any voices of dissent, or is there this jubilation of rah, rah, we rule, we just changed the borders of Europe?
Well, first of all, Vladimir Putin line in the and made sure that this line remains, perhaps unlike shifting lines of the United States. And I think this is a message that the Russians sort of listen to, but not only Russians. If you look at responses today, not only from Western Europe, from places like Moldova, from Georgia, from other countries used to be part of the USSR, this is significant because everybody is watching, of course, the Baltic states, Poland. But going back to your question about Moscow, of course, after this speech to members of parliament, there was a very spontaneous, well-organized celebration on the Red Square, in which we have seen Vladimir Putin, the poetic Putin, if you want, sentimental Putin, talking about Crimea coming back to the shores of Russia, and coming back to its home port, saying that this is a day of glory for Russia. This is the kind of rhetoric you hear on mainstream media. When it comes to dissent, hard to say. There is an independent radio station, an independent TV channel, an independent news agency. They're all under extreme pressure to either change course in terms of their policies, the way they cover Russian politics, or just you see managers and executives being replaced, editors-in-chief being replaced, again, very quickly, very swiftly. It has to be said, we might have not noticed this while we were busy with Crimea, but the only challenger to Putin, Alexei Navalny, is under house arrest here in Moscow. He's not even allowed to use the internet right now. So it's extremely difficult for voices of dissent to be heard. Having said that, 50,000 people marched in Moscow on Saturday against Putin and against his policies. There are still people here in Russia that do not believe that this is the right thing to do, but they are a minority.
Right. No, but Ilan, do stay with us. And it's interesting to hear, voices of dissent trying to make themselves heard. But it is perception that you mentioned, and Arad, near you too, perception that you mentioned around the world. And I'm wondering, when something like that happens and when a leader like Putin basically changes the borders in Europe, how does that bode for a country like Israel? And we're looking at what happened with Syria, overnight. And isn't the administration around the world saying, okay, we're looking at what the United States, has sort of enabled, quote unquote, enabled Putin to do. And what does that mean for other policies?
Well, many ministers in the current Israeli government are stating nowadays that we watch what's happening in Crimea and we must interpolate to us, and we must see that if we won't act for ourselves, no one will act for us, meaning we cannot trust the United States anymore. That's the subtext of what the Israeli ministers, the high-ranked ministers, are saying, meanwhile anonymously, but eventually it will come out. We must remember and we must look at the whole picture. Ukraine was never integrated into the West. It was never integrated into a real pact with the United States of America. It was always a satellite of Russia. The United States tried to bring Ukraine into its side in the last since the revolution of 2004, but it never succeeded. Now Israel is a tiny little piece on the globe, a tiny little dot. We have a very, very forceful army, but thanks to the United States. We have Iron Domes thanks to the United States. So Israel cannot survive without the United States. Israel can talk and declare against the United States, but it won't be able to function without this pact with the United States.
And both of you are staying with me real quickly. If you're moving on, as talks of a permanent nuclear agreement with Iran resumed in Vienna, that would be yesterday and today. It's all happening under the shadow of the tensions between the West and Russia. And Iran said the onus to ensure progress was on the world powers, with which it is negotiating. As we said, the March 18th, 19 meeting between Iran and the powers is going on. Ilan, Goran, to you, do you think that Russia now, with sanctions, which are, questionable how forceful they are, is going to try to flex the muscles of the world powers in those talks to go forward towards Iran, be more lenient? I mean, we're theorizing here.
Well, of course, the atmosphere is not extremely positive right now when Vladimir Putin calls Western leaders saying that they try to cheat Russia and he will not allow it anymore. And of course, they respond by basically ejecting Russia from the G8. There's no longer a G8 because Russia is suspended, and now it's at least temporarily a G7. So the atmosphere is extremely negative right now, but it has to be said, it is not in the Russian interest to see a nuclear-armed Iran and a destabilized Middle East. Despite what we see and what we think during the last few weeks, the Russians are very much interested in stability, especially when it comes to their periphery, the Middle East. So they don't want to see a nuclear-armed Iran, but they have not been extremely supportive of sanctions on Iran. They thought that sanctions might be useful to bring Iran to the negotiation table. And in that sense, there is a shared interest. There is still a shared interest in trying to reach a more broader agreement with Iran, in a kind of a cooperation between the Americans and the Russians. So hopefully they might be able to talk even in Vienna.
Interesting. And Rodney, sadly, all the time we have. But question to you: do you think this can affect the level of sanctions? What happened to Ukraine in these talks? The type of sanctions that will be placed in Iran?
The information coming from Vienna this morning saying that all parties are trying to overcome the differences in order to carry on. Mohammad Zarif, the Iranian foreign minister and chief negotiator, promised an op-ed this morning in the Financial Times in which he's saying this is not a charm attack, we mean business. But definitely it will be easier for him to mean the business he means in this situation when there's such a tension between Russia and the United States and the West, and there's no doubt that this will affect the talks in Vienna and will make it much more difficult to reach an agreement that will enforce Iran to do what Benjamin Netanyahu wants her to do.
Would want that country to do. Fascinating stuff. Ilan Gohan, thank you so much for joining us from Moscow. Arad Nir in studio.
Thank you for having me.
When we get back to a completely different region in Thailand, the government announces an end to the 2-month-old state of emergency in Bangkok. We'll tell you all about it and take a closer look. Of course, though, as we do every morning, first, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. Thank you for joining us. I-24 News Morning Edition, definitely where you should be, because I'm joined by Ruthie Sinai, who will help me go through the next topic, and that is Thailand. Thailand's government is set to lift the state of emergency in Bangkok and surrounding provinces 2 months after imposing it to curb anti-government protest as the security situation has improved due to the dwindling numbers of demonstrators. Protesters have been trying since early November to overthrow Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra, rid the country of the influence of her brother. And to hear more about it, we are joined, as I said, and I'm very happy about that, by Ruthie Sinai, senior news editor for I-24. And before you help me understand this, let's take a look at the next report.
After almost 5 months of unrest, Thailand is lifting the state of emergency in the country. The government imposed the emergency decree 2 months ago due to the escalation of violence in the South Asian peninsula that cost the lives of at least 23 people. Thai government officials hope that the move will ease tensions in the country and boost the tourism industry, which had been severely damaged.
Many have urged to lift the state of emergency so as to rebuild confidence in the economy as well as in tourism. The cabinet has agreed to impose the Internal Security Act instead.
The crisis began in November 2013 after the Thai government, controlled by Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra, proposed an amnesty bill that would have paved the way for the return of Yingluck's exiled brother and former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra without facing criminal charges. Tens of thousands of people took to the streets of Bangkok in an attempt to topple Shinawatra's government. Following Yingluck's recent re-election, there are concerns that the protest movement is fading away, but many are still determined to continue the fight.
The emergency decree is just a piece of paper. There is no impact on the protesters.
The situation in Thailand has taken a back seat to the uprising in Ukraine and the missing Malaysian plane. Nevertheless, the situation in Bangkok continues to be volatile, with the people of Thailand preparing for the next battle.
You know, Ruthie Sinai, senior news editor, I-24 News. What I find incredible about the story and reporting it, that this is almost good news. Is it?
Remains to be seen.
Right.
You know, one of these things. Look, I think the good news is that on the street, you know, they've been dismantling the barricades and blockades. Most of the protesters have moved to a central location, a central park, and in that sense, you know, it is good news. I think the arena is now moving more to legal challenges.
But have they lost? That's what I'm wondering. I mean, have the demonstrators in this? Okay.
No, I don't think they've lost. I think it's kind of a standoff because if you remember, they had elections at the beginning of February, and the results really haven't been tallied because there were so many disruptions at so many polling stations that there's really no official results. So Yingluck Shinawatra, whose name you say so eloquently,
lots of practice.
She's a caretaker. She heads a caretaker government, in fact, which is, you know, pretty much, it's a lame duck. I mean, they're very much devoid of real powers. The question really is, you know, are they going to hold new elections? There are several court challenges against her, one of them being something called dereliction of duty over the fact that her government promised rice subsidies to a lot of Thai farmers in the north mainly and has not delivered on these subsidies, and so there's a legal challenge there. There are a bunch of other legal challenges, the question of, you know, this limbo with no election results, no quorum in parliament, so they can't elect a parliament, they can't choose a government, sorry. So all in all, it's kind of a unclear situation.
Kind of in flux. And I want to take back what I said before. Not good news. I mean, just in terms of the violence being over, a state of emergency being lifted, and all that said, with what you just described, does this mean? I mean, Yingluck Shinawatра's brother, whose name I'm not going to try and pronounce.
Okay.
But he's actually the man, he's the power behind...
Thaksin,
exactly. Thaksin Shinawatra. Does that mean he is edging back? Does that mean that his control of the country from afar, because he's not in it, is actually so strong that there's no opposition that can rise? And we're theorizing,
perhaps,
as always.
We're theorizing. Look, another element we need to put into the pot here is that the main supporters of the government and of Thaksin Shinawatra, who's in exile, as you said, known as the Red Shirts, the head of the Red Shirts has just been, there's a new one. Yes, fellow by the name, get used to this name, his last name is Prompan. I can't pronounce his first name, but he is considered a very no-nonsense fellow, and he already headed the Red Shirts in the past and showed that he was, fairly tough. And he basically is saying, we're not going to let these rabble-rousers oust this government. Government was freely elected and so on. So that's another element to throw into the mix. Whether the Yellow Shirts, the opposing camp, who are mostly middle-class Southerners, what they're going to do is question. As I said, I think they're moving their fight to the legal arena. Sorry, one more thing I want to say is that the reason they lifted the state of the emergency was tourism, basically. Tourism and investment. They've seen a decline of something like 4% in tourism, but are really afraid that it's going to, kind of snowball and become a greater decline. As we all know, I mean, Thailand's one of the main sources of income is tourism, and everybody realized that it wouldn't do anybody any good if this trend of decline continued.
That being, one of the main sources of income, so to speak, in Thailand.
Right.
But when you said that the Yellow Shirts, and I'm wondering again out loud, Shinawatra's government, the force from behind of the brother, but the opposition doesn't seem to have a leader, right?
No,
I mean, that's who can be
true.
elected.
That is true. And the other thing is, that it's been, I mean, you said an end to violence, but, let's keep in mind that this has been going on since the end of October. We're looking at November, December, 5 months.
5 months.
And there have been only 23 people killed, which is not much when you consider the numbers.
It's a very valid point. When we look, if you take that situation compared to Ukraine, to Maidan, and you're looking at the violence that can become possible in demonstrations, then this is actually...
The point I wanted to make was that the Yellow Shirts are basically peace-loving. I mean, there's not been a violent, protest, no talk of revolution or anything like that. They're backed by the army, by the way, which is interesting. The army has kind of, sat back. I mean, didn't really want to get involved. But, if need be, I suppose they could, flex muscles. It's a question.
No, but it reminds me that you were actually the one who made the point, and when we covered this several months ago, that, the extent is them wagging, plastic bottles in the air.
Yes.
And that to the point that, the army doesn't need to get involved, but it's it's a valid point. What if they have to? And really quickly, so the next step in the so-called legal arena is what? Is resolving
to hear these challenges. The court has already stepped in. The court and the judiciary in Thailand it seems to be fairly independent. They stepped in several weeks ago, ruling that some of these laws of emergency were illegal and struck down some of these provisions. And remains to be seen what they do with these petitions about dereliction of duty on the part of the Prime Minister and other challenges.
The fact the courts at least are still independent, democracy is alive somewhere.
Yes.
Ruthie, thank you for joining us this morning. Yes, it's time. It's the moment in the day. It's happening right now. It's when Tony Grant tells us about the stories you missed while scanning the headlines.
Hi, good morning to you.
Hello. Yes.
Yeah, Boker Tov, if I dare say.
Yes, please do.
It's Hebrew for good morning.
Guten Morgen.
Okay.
German. Yes.
Starting with the Hebrew Israeli newspaper. I love this headline for different reasons. Actually, the story too. Haaretz. Defense minister leans toward Israeli operation in Iran as Obama portrays, quote-unquote, weakness. Who's speaking here? It's Moshe Ya'alon. I don't know much about Ya'alon, but you could say these are kind of hawkish comments.
Yeah, maybe.
And
I love that they put the picture of him with the boat last week with all the phallic missiles in the background. Yes.
The missile situation. Anyway, he says that, referring to the United States, that when it comes to negotiating at a Persian bazaar, the Iranians were better. Colorful language.
Yeah. This is the same fellow who called John Kerry messianic. And
yes.
Okay.
And,
doesn't mince words.
It's a little maybe uncouth, you could say. But again, Obama, is under attack from so many quarters because of the perceived or actual weakness, and we're seeing it play out in the headlines and in the media.
Yeah, when we're looking at Putin standing on the stage in the Kremlin with, gaining everything he wanted.
Yeah.
Then that's not a surprising statement from Yalon. Whether it's necessary at this point in time is always a question.
Right.
He's a kibbutznik,
Okay,
Didn't know about that.
Short on couth.
Short on couth.
Short on couth. We'll come
so
back to Crimea in a
here.
quick second.
Yes.
Speaking of diplomacy, Al Arabiya reports that I found out there first that there's a new U.S. special envoy to Syria who has been named. And what's his name? Daniel Rubinstein.
No.
Okay, yeah, I said that.
Wait, I can't get into labor.
Just reporting the facts there. There he is. And at the same time as this special envoy was appointed, replacing Robert Ford, who was the ambassador who resigned as special envoy last month. A lot of heat to take in that kitchen.
No, but Daniel Rubinstein in Damascus,
He's not in Damascus yet, I don't think, but from Washington, I believe he's ordered the closure of the Syrian embassy in the United States and the consulates in Texas and Michigan. Who knew that they had them in Texas and Michigan?
Yes,
I
and
don't know
why?
if we have so the very day or the day after he's appointed, this is his first action, which is largely symbolic, I would say, because there wasn't much going on in those embassies, I don't think. Short staff, that sort of thing.
Right.
But it's his first thing that he did.
It's his first thing. Okay, with a name like that,
he says they determined it's unacceptable for individuals appointed by that regime
that's going to bode well
to conduct diplomatic relations in the United States. So we'll see what Rubinstein gets up to next.
He's clearly not going to Damascus.
Probably.
Well, it doesn't look like
he's not coming back.
No, we wish him well. Anyway, speaking of wishing well, Gorbachev is back in the news. Did you see this headline in Russia Today, appropriately enough? Crimea's referendum corrected Soviet-era mistake, Gorbachev says.
First of all, wow, blast from the past. I have to say, I don't know, what has he been up to in
he's done some ads for Louis Vuitton.
Obviously,
no, he's not.
I think
not plastic surgery.
No, he's a great. I mean, look, he's a very important figure. It's for him to come out and say this is sort of.
It's touting the line that Putin has been saying, and that it's been a 60-year mistake for the Soviet Union 60 years ago to give up Crimea, et cetera, which still, it's all standing behind this wagging of force of we've done it, we've won.
It's sort of like, what's the next mistake? Alaska? It's a very slippery slope here, people. I mean, Sarah Palin is looking out from her porch right now thinking, hey, hands off my glacier, or I don't know, my melting glacier.
Yes.
Seriously.
I just had an image.
That was one of your better.
Really? That takes over. But
as an American, I have concerns.
I have an image of Sarah Palin with a shotgun, guarding her house up in Alaska.
You know that on some level she is.
She is, exactly. Oh my God, those poor deer. Yes.
Speaking of a poor deer. Hurriyet reported, this was actually the day before yesterday, about this woman who made a hand gesture of some kind to Erdogan as he was passing by in the city of Izmir, which is famously anti-Erdogan. She was detained by the Turkish authorities for making this gesture, and Erdogan was quoted in this article in Hurriyet as saying, the prime minister comes by and she's making this gesture, and it's like, I just think, it's almost like he's the king and God forbid you should, cross his path. And his reaction is basically she was detained, arrested, I don't know, but troubling, I think, to many.
No, troubling in many ways. And you're saying the right thing. We've had several people in the, experts in Turkey saying that, it's no secret that Erdogan is acting a bit like a sultan.
Right,
but, he said something even worse. He said, if it had been a man, it'd been bad enough. But if it had been with a woman.
Yeah.
Snap. Here, I did the gesture.
You can imagine if in any given place in the U.S., if George Bush or Obama walked by, not everyone is going to be like, hey,
Are you kidding?
It's anyway.
No.
But speaking of Turkey.
Had it been a man, yes.
Yeah, today's Zaman. Fethullah Gulen back in the headlines. Okay, the
Pennsylvania,
Islamic scholar who's
yes.
holed up or living the high life in Pennsylvania, or living in Pennsylvania.
It's a sad thought.
He says his deep conviction to Islam means he cannot be allowed to turn a blind eye to allegations of corruption. This newspaper every day is coming out with stronger and stronger headlines which are implicating Erdogan and the corruption scandal, which is still dogging him every day. And this guy, even though he's ensconced safely in Pennsylvania, is being about as openly anti-Erdogan as you can imagine.
No, but he's the biggest force of dissent, to the point that Erdogan actually even called, I think, the United States State Department and asked to sort of keep tabs on him.
Allegedly, yeah.
Allegedly, so
yeah.
we don't, not confirmed, to the point that, there is dissent. This is one of the main voices of dissent from outside the country.
Yes, his Hizmet movement, which is charity, education, very strong in Turkey. If he went to Turkey at some point, who knows what would happen or not happen, but certainly he's shaking things up to the extent that he can from the United States.
And speaking from exile, like somebody who might be considering return, well, again, theorizing, I have to always cachet it, might be considering, coming back. He is a potential leader, if ever, coming back.
Fascinating
to
see.
Yes.
In that part of the world as well, Tuvima in Athens, my favorite Athenian newspaper, reports that the former Athens airport is about to create 35,000 jobs, which is great for the Greek economy. It's the old airport, not the new one, and it's right next to downtown, so good news for the Greeks.
No, amen, and sadly all the time we have, but you will report from there live, because that is your region. Tony, thank you for joining us. Ruthie Sinai as well. When we get back, proof of the Big Bang. A stunning discovery made at the research station in Antarctica indicates Albert Einstein was right about the nature of the universe. I'm sure Sarah Palin's concerned. First, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Wednesday, March 19th, 2014. This is still the morning edition. I'm still Yael Levy. Actually, March 19th is 2 days before summer is officially starting. It just crossed my mind. I'm sharing. Yeah, it is. I'm sharing it with the world. And I'm sharing Tony Grant with the world. He's the one and only who joins me here with What's Hot on the Web. What is hot on the web?
Well, could anything be hotter than Kanye West?
Never.
I mean, and you know what's hot about him?
What?
His temper.
Oh my God! Did somebody poke fun at his wife again?
No, that's an everyday occurrence.
That's right. Okay.
But no, in July he had that dust up with the paparazzi at LAX in California. Well, the law has caught up with him. And
as it should with that coat.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the coat about. But 2 years probation after no contest plea to battery in that dust up, and part of his sentence there is 24 sessions of anger management. Now, I got to tell you, if I am Kanye West and someone is going to be talking to me about anger management, that's going to make me angry.
I think that's not going to go well.
I don't think that's going to go down too well.
Yeah.
I mean, anger management, Kanye West, anger
management, and look at the coat.
Anger is his whole oeuvre. On a more somber note, the suicide of Lorenz Scott's, Mick Jagger's girlfriend in New York, is, it's news, it's scandal, it's crossover in all sorts of directions. Bianca May Jagger, one of Jagger's kids, has canceled a fashion show of hers in response to the tragedy. Yeah. Mick Jagger's own website, he put a message of mourning on his own site.
How old was Lorenz Scott?
I think she was 49, I believe. Yeah. And this is it's a tragedy. And Mick Jagger, I think throughout his illustrious life, he's kind of dodged a lot of these sort of things of this nature. Let's say he's had many loves, and I have a list here which is only partial list,
Married Faithful,
including Carla Bruni.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
Many, but he dated Scott for 13 years. So when he posts a message on his website about that, I mean, it goes to show that even if they weren't an official couple before, the relationship was there. And so it's one of these things that's whether it's in London, it's in New York, it's a lot of news.
And making headlines all across the web, and we don't really know, depression. We don't really know what
exactly motivated
that.
And she was a very accomplished designer in her own right, and so the fashion industry is mourning the loss as well.
Yeah, very sad.
Speaking of not sad but weird, Courtney Love.
Sorry. Yeah,
she
I know where this
claims
is
to
heading.
have found the missing Malaysian
found the
airliner.
plane. She found the plane.
You know, she tweeted a picture. She drew some arrows of where she thought the plane might be.
I actually saw that yesterday, I think, on Facebook, and I was wondering, was she? I mean, how high was she? Was she high? So how high was she?
I don't know, but she's just plunged herself into this controversy, and we don't know why.
And here's the thing about this story. It didn't need Courtney Love.
It did not need Courtney Love. Maybe like maybe 5-10 years from now,
enough.
it's confusing enough. But you add Courtney Love to the mix, and it just becomes.
And you're just, my God, now it's an ABC series.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Hello.
Yes.
Hello Magazine, my favorite source of upscale British gossip, reports that Prince William did that yesterday.
Sorry. I'm so scared.
He extends his sword, his princely sword, to anoint the doctor who delivered Prince George with the Royal Victorian Order. It looks like he's about to do something else to the doctor.
No, he is anointing the doctor who delivered his son?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, he's honoring him by, pulling out that sword and putting it next to
chocolate.
But a sword. Sword. What are we in 1214?
Yes, we are in 1214 when it comes to that. Come on. At the end of the. That's just ridiculous.
The picture that says 1,005 words.
And the world falls for this stuff, though, Tony.
I pay a lot of taxes, but not to the British monarchy. Thank heavens. Okay. But we wish them luck. And Kate Middleton apparently not pregnant again. There were rumors.
That's confirmed.
Yeah, that's confirmed.
Okay. I'm glad.
Speaking of rumors, Rumor Fix reports on Scarlett Johansson's latest statement. She has broken her silence on the Woody Allen sex scandal, in which she says she basically doesn't want to get involved. Okay.
She wants to remain silent.
But guess who's not remaining silent about it? Lena Dunham of Girls to Fame reports that she claims that she is nauseated by the Woody Allen sex scandal.
Nauseated for which side?
Well, she's noted to be a Woody Allen fan, but maybe less so in the wake of Dylan Farrow's revelations, accusations, whatever you want to call them.
I mean, it gets with all due respect, and this has so many awful undertones, but why is this being played out on the web lines and in the media?
It's inevitable because it's Woody Allen. And because of the New York Times, because when you put an op-ed as Dylan Farrow did in the New York Times, and you name names, and you say, Scarlett Johansson, what would you have done?
Yeah.
At some point, these stars have got to respond. Otherwise, it seems like they're complicit somehow. So even if they say they don't want to get involved, they have to come out and say they don't want to get involved.
Scarlett Johansson's I'm getting involved beyond my, she's getting involved without knowing it in so many things this year.
Yes, but I love her.
No, she rocks. Okay. She's your,
I also love Miley Cyrus.
Oh, God,
in
there
a
is
way.
Miley
And did you hear what
Cyrus.
happened to her tour bus yesterday?
Okay.
It went up in flames. The Bangers bus. The Bangers tour, which is the eloquently named tour of Miley Cyrus, on the way to the gig in New Orleans. There is in flames in the picture there.
Self-combust.
She's safe. All the crew are safe. Yeah, they got off the bus in time, but that bus just went, bangers.
Our next segment deals with the big band, and this is such a great lead-in for that. But yes,
crazy stuff. Yves Saint Laurent naked. Well, no, well, it depends on your perspective.
Yes.
But the French seem to think that when he took his clothes off, it was a Christ-like moment.
Well, this is a very Adonis-like moment.
This is a famous picture. We talked about Lorenz Scott being a fashion designer, and it may be empowered in one way or another, maybe subconsciously by Yves Saint Laurent's fashion forwardness. There's a new biopic coming out, going to be premiering in London soon, and in one of the scenes, they recreate what led up to this famous shot of Yves Saint Laurent taking off his clothes, making a very sort of revolutionary statement. And of course, he put women in a tuxedo for the first time.
I mean, that's true.
And he did do a lot for fashion.
Incredibly so. And this is actually the type of nude pictures that one can, and one looks at and think
tasteful.
Tasteful, artistically, beautifully.
Before Instagram, you had sort of
before we had,
sort of
butt
aesthetic.
ladies and whatnot. Definitely.
Yeah.
Tony, thank you so much. Stick with me for this incredible next segment. There we go. This is huge news, okay? An American-led team of astronomers have discovered what many consider the holy grail of their field, ripples in the fabric of space-time that are echoes of the massive expansion of the universe that took place just after the Big Bang. Yes, it's complicated. If the discovery holds up to scrutiny, it's evidence of how the universe rapidly expanded less than a trillionth of a second after the Big Bang. And to hear more about it and try and simplify those big words, we're joined in studio by researcher associate Dr. Meir Shimon. Dr. Shimon, thank you for being with us, and from Tel Aviv University. Before that, let's take a look at the following report.
One brief moment of the universe's origin remained a mystery until now. A group of astronomers discovered ripples in the fabric of space-time. The gravitational waves detected show how quickly and to what extent the universe was expanding just after the Big Bang.
I think we should think of this measurement today as opening a new window up on what we believe to be a new regime of physics, the physics of what happens in the first unbelievably tiny fraction of a second in the universe, and at extremely high energies, apparently at energies that are comparable to the grand unified theory scale.
The findings reassure the Big Bang theory and of cosmic inflation. With more accurate data on the energy levels during the universe's expansion, astronomy could go on to even greater revelations.
This detection is cosmology's missing link. It's something that we thought should be there, but we weren't really sure, and it has been eagerly sought now for close to 2 decades. This is not something that's just a home run, but a grand slam. It's the smoking gun for inflation. It hints at unification of fundamental forces at energies 10 trillion times higher than those accessible at the Large Hadron Collider at CERN.
So as more scientists can agree now about the universe's origin, the dispute is likely to remain about its future.
Okay, Dr. Shimon, this is so exciting. I wish I knew what it meant. What does this mean? What did they find?
Well, right after the Big Bang, we believe that there was a huge expansion of the universe, some very violent expansion of the universe that stopped shortly after the Big Bang. So it lasted for only a billionth of a billionth of a billionth of a billionth of a second.
Nothing, but everything expanded.
Excuse me?
But everything expanded.
Everything expanded so rapidly, and then it stopped. The question was when exactly this happened. And this discovery tells us where exactly it happened and what are the energies that the universe was in at that time. So
how does it prove the Big Bang theory? How does it, it sort of proves that this thing happened? That I know I'm asking questions of somebody who doesn't know anything about physics. I'm getting that look from you, but still.
So let me explain.
Yes.
Big Bang and inflation are two separate things.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. And so two separate things. But this seems to be so exciting for the scientific world that there's also a physicist in Stanford, Andre Linde.
Yeah.
You know who he is?
Yes, sure.
Of course, you do. Okay, I didn't. But he, right after this came out, yesterday there was a video that was posted in Stanford University's website saying that he was receiving a message that the smoking gun proof that he basically came up with was proven correct by this new theory. Let's take a look, because it's very exciting stuff. Okay, that's Lind getting news that his theory has been proven right.
Today I'm going to deliver a news to Professor Andre Linde, who is the founding father of inflation. So inflation is the theory about the bang of Big Bang. It explains why we have all this stuff in the universe. So today I'm going to tell him our experiment, Bicep 2, based at South Pole, has found the smoking gun evidence of inflation. He has no idea that I'm coming.
Why?
So I have a surprise for you.
Wow.
It's 5 sigma at 0.2.
Discovery?
Yes.
What? Just a second. Can you repeat it?
5 sigma, as clear as day, R of 0.2.
Can you repeat it again?
R 0.2 plus minus
0.2. If we stop there. We don't expect anybody. Renata tells it's probably some kind of delivery. Did you order anything? Yeah, I ordered 30 years ago. Finally, it arrived.
I was in tears. Okay, he is the father of inflation. You said inflation, Big Bang, two separate things, but connected in this new theory, right? In some ways. Okay. Let me ask you this. If the Big Bang theory, it helps prove it or make it right, you said that something needs to be validated. Doesn't that also, I think you guys, you scientists, are always in a battle with, creationists, with people who believe that the universe was created in a different way. Does this finally prove that it wasn't the hand of God that created the universe, rather a scientific proof of it?
Well, it's a good question, but it depends on how you define God.
Okay.
Well, it's a matter of definition. For us, it was just a confirmation of a theory that had to be there, because without inflation, we cannot explain a wide spectrum of phenomena in the structure of the universe as a whole. So inflation was proposed by Andre Linde, Alan Guth, and others at 1980. We know about the Big Bang from, let's say, 1920, more or less.
Right.
So it's 60 years later. It has nothing to do with the Big Bang and with the creation. It has to do with the structure of the universe as a whole. The only missing part in this theory was the energy scale, or let's say the exact time that this inflation
took place. And you're saying it was like a trillionth of a trillionth of a trillionth of a second?
Something like this, yes.
Ridiculous. Like it was
10 to the minus 36.
And is seconds. And the way that was proven yesterday, this big revelation was through gravitational waves?
Exactly.
What does that mean?
So Einstein's theory of gravity predicts that on top of the homogeneous background of the universe, there are small ripples, and these ripples can be either density perturbations that eventually grew up to be the galaxies and all the structure that we see in the universe. Thanks to them, we are here.
We're sitting here.
Right?
Okay.
And there are also gravitational waves. Gravitational waves have never been detected directly, but they.
And this is the detection of them?
This is an indirect detection. This is not the first indirect detection, but it's an indirect detection from the very early universe.
Huh.
So we know that they existed there, and we also know through this detection what were the prevailing energies at that time.
So
when inflation took place.
Okay. And you said it needs to be validated real quickly. What that means that it still needs to be validated?
To be confirmed by other independent telescopes.
Okay, it's like a focus group basically, just to make it
And also this experiment, this telescope observed only 1% of the sky. And there is an assumption here that there is no preferred direction in the universe. You need other experiments to observe other parts of the sky. For example, the Planck satellite, the European satellite, that is going to release its results the Planck team is going to release the results in a few months.
So that could be that. Okay. Right. I'm so much more educated. No. Fascinating stuff. Thank you for explaining that to us. When we get back, folks, good grief. Peanuts, Charlie Brown, they're back. They're on the big screen. In CGI form, no less. That's a big bang. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning, I-24 News, morning edition. You're still with us. You stuck with us, as you should have. You know why? Because this is a very exciting moment. There's the Big Bang, and there's today, where Gabi Tartakovsky joins us in studio.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
You're as exciting as the physicist.
Absolutely.
With the Culture Corner.
Yes, there was a Big Bang in animation. Seriously. I have some very disturbing images. Snoopy and Charlie Brown are back.
That's devastating.
In CGI format.
No. Okay.
Can we take a look? This is a new TV special, the first since 1980. You see,
what?
The last one in 1980 was called Bon Voyage Charlie Brown and Don't Come Back. But now he's back, and have you seen? This is a complete disaster. It's a far cry from the original animation.
No, it's very much a far cry. First of all, clearly listening to you, I do understand that you are a connoisseur of Peanuts.
Indeed. I mean, Peanuts is basically about isolation and crushing defeats and kids echoing the tribulations of grown-ups. And this CGI atrocity...
Speaking from experience,
absolutely.
Yes,
I'm sad to say. Yes, that's a different segment. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I mean, Charlie Brown, look at him. The boy never smiled in his life. It's not about a boy and his dog. Now...
What is it about then? It's about the kid everybody beats on?
Yes, but for this new special, they didn't reveal any much details other than There's this redhead girl Charlie Brown is always in love with, and he hides behind the tree. We are going to see for the first time the redhead. Yes, we're going to see her.
Do we really want to?
Doesn't
it take away from the drama? Exactly.
Absolutely, but according to Schultz's sons, I mean Charles M. Schultz, the creator.
To people who are not learners like us.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Charles Schultz, the illustrator, died in 2000, and the Schultz family did a pretty good job in maintaining his legacy and estate in a very tasteful merchandise, and there's a beautiful Charles M. Schultz museum. But then they took creative control, and his son and grandson are responsible as producer and writer.
Right.
And they say, you know, this is what Dad would have wanted, which is the same old lie the Disney family is telling us, the Henson family is telling us. That is not what Daddy Schultze wanted.
No, he didn't. We should burn them. We should go there and take them down.
No, this is
a geek down.
No, I'm glad.
This is a geek down. I like that. I'm going to use that.
It's as if you turn in the studio, you have your imaginary friends.
I'm just saying.
I can see your imaginary friends on the side.
We're going to take arm, imaginary arm.
Imaginary arms. Okay.
I'm going to take down everybody.
But because being the only person here who had one friend in elementary school, confession though, I was a total geek. I was a complete loner. Yes.
One of us. Okay.
One more. Yes.
One more. Now to something which actually we see how legacy is probably preserved. We move to India, where the first Indian film museum is opening. India has over 50 museums, national museums. This is the first one dedicated to Bollywood and Indian cinema.
Just now, because that's like one of their biggest industry ever.
Definitely. Most, I'm sad to say, but most of our stereotypes are derived from Indian film industry. And
really?
Yes.
Well, that's good and bad. Aren't they derived in Indian industry? Aren't they derived from Hollywood?
That's to a certain extent.
Right.
That's true. But this museum is opening because it will mark on May the 100th anniversary of the first feature film in India. So the
birth of Bollywood.
The birth of Bollywood. Let's look at the VTR. Yes.
It might not be the most deeply intellectual of film industries, but Bollywood is one of the largest in the world, and it's now celebrating over 100 years of lovable movies with the first ever Indian film museum. 7 years in the making and costing nearly $20 million, the government-funded National Museum of Indian Cinema, set in South Mumbai, traces Indian cinema's history from the black and white silent era to its musical modern blockbusters. In addition to the museum, Bollywood tours are offered, including drives past the homes of the stars and visits to film cities, studios and costume galleries, trying to boost tourism revenue. The idea is to celebrate not just Hindi language Bollywood, but also the films made in the various regions and languages across India, a country that produces a staggering nearly 1,500 movies a year. However, the curators of the project were faced with big gaps in the country's rich cinema heritage. Many of India's early films were not preserved, and the last remaining print of India's first talking feature, the 1931 film Alam Ara, was destroyed in a fire in 2003. With its new attraction, Mumbai hopes the first of its kind museum on Hindi cinema will put the town and its flourishing movie industry back on the map.
Ah, the classic Alam Ara.
Yes, it's funny to notice that although it's a very distinct cultural phenomenon, Bollywood is slowly shaping like Hollywood itself, and there's also a walk of fame in Mumbai,
really?
Just like the one in Hollywood.
In Hollywood with the feet. And when you say shaping, I mean, the one thing that I like about Bollywood is that, I mean, it's like candy for the masses. It's not blood, it's candy for the masses.
And it's live and kicking. I mean, we have this recollection of the classic Indian films from the 50s with Ichikidana and all that Raj Kapoor classics, but it's actually a major hit worldwide, and the recent Indian blockbuster gained $65 million worldwide. That's almost 6 billion rupees. I mean, that's big money.
That actually feeds Mumbai, doesn't it?
Yes.
That kind of feeds Mumbai. No, it's fascinating because I don't think we realize just how much money that industry wields, and just now the first museum. Okay, and what else before we move on? Yes.
While we're on the subject of world cinema, there's exciting news for both animation fans and soccer fans. Soccer,
not peanuts. Okay.
Not peanuts.
Yeah.
Soccer, aka football, aka not basketball. There was there was this great Argentine hit called Metagol, which is table soccer. It's
Foosball,
yeah. Yes. And this is Argentine's most expensive film ever. It was a huge hit in Argentine, and now it's been bought by the Weinstein Company, and it's going to English version, which is going to be released in the US, Canada, France. It's going to be called Underdogs. This is basically the greatest film Pixar didn't make already. It's about a shy boy whose only talent is being good at foosball, at table soccer.
Do American kids know what foosball? No, American kids know what foosball is.
Yes, yeah. But I think the timing is excellent because this English version will be hitting the screens right after the World Cup. So fever pitch is still going to be high. Kids are going to be interested in soccer. And the players, the exact figures of the foosball are coming back to life, and they both reassure the kid and his poor confidence. Speaking of Charlie Brown, and this is going to be
my own experience as a kid. Yes, okay.
It's going to be a very fun film, and there was a discussion. I mean, obviously soccer is huge in Argentina, but do American kids?
Can they ever relate to it? First of all, I'm going to have to smack you for calling it soccer. It's football,
it's
people. Football.
But football is, it's the NFL.
For Americans, as they call it, the World Series. Sorry, the World Series
is baseball.
Is baseball, which only the Americans play.
Yes.
Why it's called the World Series, we don't know. Football is men, kicking a ball, but fine. The Americans took hold. That said, one last thing you have for us, and that would be?
Yes, Gene Simmons and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There was a lot of controversy regarding Kiss. Kiss has been eligible for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since the late 90s, and they're going to be inducted this year in April.
God, we're old.
Yes.
No, you're not.
Yeah. And Gene Simmons recently said in an interview that hip-hop doesn't belong in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, hip-hop acts have been inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since 2007.
Yeah.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inducts artists since 1985. Back then, hip-hop was a novelty, but then it came to acknowledge hip-hop's contribution.
Well, why is Gene Simmons being a snob?
Well, he says, plain and simple, if you can't play guitar and if you don't write your own songs, you don't belong there. Which, some might argue Elvis Presley didn't write his own songs.
Thank you.
Donna Summer didn't play guitar. ABBA.
But
only a couple of Swedes are talented.
I mean, is it that you just have to? Well, according to Gene Simmons.
Well, anyway, according to Gene Simmons, the big money is in publishing anyway, regardless who plays the instruments.
Sadly, all the time we have, I am mesmerized. Gabi, thank you. Stay with us because it is the Geek Down.
Let's see what you got.
Bring it on. Ziffy Tao, original classic geek. The first generation of geeks is with us finally this week again with the mega news and mega geekness. Hit it.
All right, so we're going to start with Google, or a hack for Google Maps. Google Map, or more precisely, the street view of Google, when you can click on a map and then look around you and see the streets and see all the places that the cars pass through and took pictures of as part of
did you
Google's
ever pass by it?
military.
Wow, what is that?
What is that? So that is, someone did a hack, which is nice because it gives you a little view of how Earth will look like once all those humans will vanish, and how nature will reclaim these cities. Now, images of concept art and interesting images of urban areas, especially famous urban areas that are reconquered by nature.
This is created to show us if we weren't such oxygen guzzling, Earth destroyers.
Not just that, because this basically says if we don't do anything and just nature takes over everything. So that's how your cities will look like. It's not perfect because it's overlaid and you can see that it's overlaid, but it is interesting, and it gives you some nice apocalyptic view of the world.
It's a little bit like, what was that Will Smith movie?
Right,
Gabi,
the last After the Legend.
No, I Legend, exactly.
I Legend, when he walks in
Geek Down.
That's a different apocalypse. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm sorry.
Just say.
I took that one.
Yeah.
So next we got something which is really, really nice, and that is the universal, I guess, at least on Earth, but it's probably all over the universe, where you look at power grids and you see people. What is that? No, not that one.
That's not that one. No.
But that's. We can do that. Let's do that. This is the. I said universal. I didn't mean the universe. Let's do the sneakers. Sneakers
Universal as in the
power
company,
grid.
right?
That's the one.
Thank you.
Right. Okay.
That everybody wonders why do people do that?
Why do they do that? So this short documentary is looking into trying to understand, and there are tons of theories of why this happens, and from all over the world.
Why does this happen?
Some people say that this is a thing where drug lords just mark their territory, and it came from Spain and stuff like that. Some say that once a boy does something with a girl,
right, then you toss your shoe.
That. And there's a whole website called Shufiti, which is like graffiti, because they're saying that this throwing of shoes,
kind of
it's like
thing,
it's an art, and it's interesting, and it's a very interesting short. It's like 10 minutes long documentary, short movie. Really interesting to see it. There aren't any answers. You don't understand really what happens.
I can give you the answer to this.
It's
is
insane. What? No.
The answer is just. I'm sorry. To me, it looks like okay. I had a couple of them beers. Let's see if I can toss my shoes over that line.
Definitely, that's an answer. That's an answer. It's also, it ties into bullying. You see, that's
how to bully.
So bullies take that shoes from these kids. You got $100 shoes. Let's take them off.
And I'm wondering if the people who do that, or if it's just one person like Banksy. It's just one guy
all over the world.
He's the one who does it.
So that's like that's really strange. Now, next to the real universal universe thingy wingy bingy images from the Hubble. So what we're seeing here is a star being born, or stars more precisely. This is brilliant. Whoever saw Cosmos, the original Cosmos, probably they'll talk about it in the new Cosmos with deGrasse Tyson, which I forgot his first name.
I know what we're talking about.
Cosmos, the original show, 13 episodes, created in the 80s by Carl Sagan, talking about all thing science, everything about the universe, how it was born, what are we here, what we are doing, where we're heading, etc., etc. So we're saying this. We're saying this. This is how stars are born within these clusters of gas.
Is this a representation? Or
that's not a representation. That's an image from the Hubble.
This is
so
the thing.
The clouds that we're seeing, that usually we see these beautiful like gas clouds in space. All those images. These are actually wombs.
Really?
In space, and little baby stars are born within them, and slowly the gas evaporates after it condenses into some of the stars, and it evaporates, and then these
stars.
And
a star is born.
Yes, and it's a beautiful thing, and now we have that.
This sounds incredibly innovative and new to me, or this is something that we've seen before.
We've never seen one really like we didn't see the light hits from a newly born star.
And this is we're talking.
We have seen images of something that's about to be a star, and we have old stars, but these are really young stars.
Okay.
And someday they'll grow up, and they'll have planets around them, and they'll have other Earth, and they won't need us anymore. But for now, they need us to look at them and appreciate it, because that's like jewelry.
That's like jewelry, and when we're talking about stars.
Okay.
And then one really quick thing.
Okay, so after
20 seconds,
20,000 years in the making, Sin City 2, A Dame to Kill For is here. Robert Rodriguez movie, the first one, Sin City, was a hit. And then he said, we're going to do a new one. And then it took like a bazillion years
to make it.
Yes, and
now
it's here,
it's
and it's beautiful, and it looks really, really interesting.
Amen, people, and that's what we're going to look at.
And see it.
Ziv Kitaro, Gabi Tartakovsky. The Geek Down has just happened. That's it for us this morning, people. All we have time to say is check us on the web, Facebook, I24 News. Don't forget to join us tomorrow morning to start your day every single day, as you should be doing, because we're watching you. Yes, thank you.